Yeah. Well, we have it. Well, we have it. Free trial, blah, 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 blah. Full screen. All right. All right. See you. Hello, all the people. The beautiful Sunday morning. Okay, cool. We're still group. Please come closer. It will be easier to me for me to see you and maybe for you to speak up, because I would love to have the microphone passing among you and among yourselves. So please don't be shy, if it's possible. If it's not, then okay. I understand that this is the Sunday morning. No, okay, we have something like 40 minutes because colleagues cheated, so I'll try flying out. We're a small group, so we will not be splitting into anything, but it will be good if we could be interactive. It's an interactive session, so I'll try to share some perspective and give a little bit of framework and hear you out how you're dealing with these problems, and if you're dealing with these problems and if you feel okay and fine with it, and how much support we could have together in close future. How many of you actually work with staff in Wikimedia? Everyone? Yes? No? Who is before hiring a person? Okay, so who would love to have a staff? And they don't have a staff, but I see people that are neither nor, so some people don't have a staff and then they don't want to have a staff, I don't know. Mostly you are, how many of you are volunteers, if you could show up? And 2 remaining persons are staffers. Cool. Okay, let's cater for both. We have this strange situation, basically, quite different than in a normal world, that volunteers are recruiting the staff. Very often, even in non-governmental organizations, when you have the staff, it's a little bit the other way around. Or you have some very responsible people and so on dealing with the staffers. In Wikimedia, because especially most of the organizations are very, very small, it's volunteers directly recruiting the staffer. Sometimes it's the volunteers recruiting the staffer who is recruiting the other staffer. But most of the time, it's still heavily facilitated by the volunteers process, which brings some difficulties, especially the volunteers. They don't need to be this professional, but they want to be. So they should have different tools and frameworks to do this properly, right? There is something in the literature like a life cycle of staff. You can find out all of this and things. Just drop it into the Google. You'll see a lot of frameworks. Which is surprising, right? Because for a volunteer, I mean, when I was a young person, it was simple, right? You find a person to do the job, and this person does the job, right? So what do you mean how with this life cycle? And actually, this thing is a little bit more complex than you might imagine, and it's still a very simplified thing. So if we have a life of a staff person, there is a number of, let's say, stages, sometimes very often repeated. It starts actually with stage 0. So even before recruitment, there are some steps. Then you have recruitment. You need to onboard the person, often omitted fact. Then you need to think about the rewards, recognition to the staff person, how you teach them, how you train them, how you develop them as a person, as the staffer, as a Wikimedian, how you're checking their performance and progress. This is how we very often fail. And retention and graduation. This is also strongly omitted. But let's go to basically the stage 0. Before recruitment, I decide that there is something like a job description. So what is this? So this is actually answering the question, so who I am precisely hiring anyway. Like, think twice and think third time and for the fourth time, what this person is really going to do. what we expect them to know or how to perform. Like maybe they need to have some formal qualifications, whom they will be working with, like reporting to, like what is their place in a team. Even if you are hiring a first staffer, there is always a team already, at least of the volunteers. So what will be the dynamic? They will be reporting to someone, they will be collaborating with someone, they will be maybe advising someone. So where they will be seated. How much money we have for these things, what we can offer, monetarily, not monetarily, maybe there are some extras. On some markets it's quite important. What is the contractual obligations? What is the time horizon? Are we hiring them permanently, temporarily? This person is to evolve within the 12 months, maybe to some different position. What is the deal over here? And maybe the first question to you, like, honestly, do you do the proper job description when you're hiring? Like, hand of heart. Philip says yes. Grzegorz? I'll call you out.
Yeah, we try.
We try. Because I think that we do, but on the other hand, I still have a feeling that probably some more things can be done, even though we are really trying with the job description to think whom am I hiring. But the practicality with Wikimedia Poland, but also in my professional job, is that the people who are recruiting that we will meet on the interviews and in the CVs, sometimes they are a little bit different than we expected. And my personal opinion is that I always do the job description, but also I'm quite open to have a flexibility seeing who comes. Because very often people offer the opportunities that I wouldn't think of. Or I wouldn't dare that the people basically with this kind of a skill set, they will come to the recruitment process, and maybe they can offer something beyond the job description. So we will be amending it a bit here or there. But still, probably the best way is still to at least keep to some strategy that we had. Other thing is attraction. Stage 0 before the recruitment. So this is the ongoing job. Even before recruiting anyone in an ongoing organization, it's good to make sure that actually we are someone that the people want to work with. And you might be surprised that this is actually very important thing, something like a brand recognition or recognition of you as an organization. Let's be honest, probably we are not the most paying, we are not, I don't know, JP Morgan, financial traders of the world. We will not have the best compensation package in the world, but we can have a lot of other things. We can have a nice cause that people think about. Notability, we are being seen as a Wikipedia thing, but also we can have a good opinion or a bad opinion on the marketplace. Among the other non-governmental organizations or something. Very often it's a small world. So the people have some clue who we are and how we work, how we behave, because they saw our staffers, they saw our volunteers, they saw some events, something like that. The visibility of the workplace. And you might be surprised that recently we were on like a Women in Tech fair. And I was surprised that basically some people knew us as the organization, as a Wikimedia Poland, just because they were actively observing job postings in the NGO world. So they recognized us because we had, according to them, nice and clear job postings. They didn't apply to us, but they knew at least what we are doing. So the job posting is also a very important communication tool. Just in the future, so the people understand and they share and trade information among themselves. Also networking, like we have some partners have partners, and they know and they can pass, especially if we are looking for someone, let's say, very skilled, with some high precise set of knowledge. I think the other thing is organizational culture as well. So empowerment that we give, I think, very often in Wikimedia movement to the to the staffers. And the red flags, on the other hand, if we have any, like if we have some toxic workplace opinion, they can be very important to, I don't know, attract people. Anything else that, if you think that how we should be working on our opinion, something missing, your experience? Mikla.
I think, Mikola, Wikimedia Ukraine, I think an important part of attraction here is to understand what is the pool of candidates you're looking for. Are you looking with somebody with more of like Wikimedian experience, in which case you should probably like attract your community more, or your partners or people you're working with, attract them that it's a good time to convert to a Wikimedia staff for you maybe. Or if you're looking with some external expertise where you should probably explain them more, like what Wikimedia is and why do you want to work with. Or you're mixed and actually you need to make a choice in your head that like, what would happen if you have a good Wikimedian and a good non-Wikimedian who both have their advantages and disadvantages, but you just need to attract them differently and target your audience differently, basically.
Mm-hmm. Easier said than done for some organizations. I think that we could have an idea how to, I don't know, convince Wikipedians that we are reasonable to work with. On the other hand, some organizations are not, might have a different opinion. But with the experts outside, or the skilled people outside, well, we will not have a budget, I don't know, for the big presence on trade shows, on media presence and so on. So any ideas how we could develop this brand?
Yeah. Like I can answer on that one, that for example in Wikimedia Ukraine we advertise on like the places where NGO people hang out. So there are like portals or groups where people working in NGOs usually look for job opportunities or network. That's where we try to advertise our job offers, and it works quite well. Maybe there are better places.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you took the target audience, which are the NGO working people, and you're actively and constantly, repeatedly...
Not constantly and repeatedly, because, well, we would not do every day remind that we exist, but it's more like we figured out that there are... Yeah, I don't know how much time we have. We figured out that there are very few job positions in the Wikimedia movement where we would want to take people from a not-profit sector. So we hired, for example, an office manager who did not work in a non-profit, and it's a good match. But, for example, a project manager who manages volunteer retention would definitely not be a good person if you hire them from JP Morgan.
Thanks.
We never know, but it would not be your obvious top 5 guesses.
Okay. Any other person? I think we're jumping. We still have 28 minutes.
Good LinkedIn profile.
Oh. You need to take the microphone. So Gregor has suddenly a good LinkedIn profile. And good LinkedIn profile, I mean as a profile posting regularly something. Like with the communication visibility. I think it's good also for fundraising and general networking to have an active LinkedIn profile, but yeah. Okay, so we go to the stage 1, recruitment. We talked about the job description, and I still think that the job description needs to be translated into job offer, because what we design internally needs to be still translated to the plain language and a good pitch. Certainly, there are many channels of communication, maybe like Mikola says, in some dedicated NGO portals, maybe LinkedIn, maybe other recruitment venues. In every country it will be different, like the markets are very different, what is important. In practice, at least in my experience, the selection process is very multi-layered. Normally CVs, then interviews, and the next round of interviews, always the pyramid shape that you are decreasing this thing. With an obvious thing that the highest investment costs is ED, so recruitment cost. I would strongly encourage to put a lot of time and effort if you are hiring an ED person. This will be the most important person for the volunteers to work with. So this really pays off to dedicate your time and a lot of energy. The good recruitment process will take a lot of working hours from you, from the volunteers. This is also why we are spreading it. In Wikimedia Poland, we have a tradition to involve the community members, something like a trusted community members, senior members of the association, to help out with the recruitment process, at least to do some CV screenings, maybe some interviews, at least participation in the interviews, to advise us on the particular things in their field of expertise. We did it with the ED, we did it with some specialist positions, because some volunteers are heavily working with, for instance, GLAM or community support, so they could help out. It's not only the question of buy-in, it is a little bit, but also the experience of the volunteers who will be really on the field working with this person is really, really helpful. It helps us to give the, let's say, multi-angle view on the person that we are recruiting. And I didn't know where to put it, so I put it in the recruitment. In Wikimedia Poland, we offer usually the pretty high, comparing to the other organizations, level of autonomy from the start. And this is something which is clearly communicated in the recruitment process, because I think it's a perk for some people who want to be independent, who want to be creative, who want to design things, do the ideation, and then do their work very much on themselves. But for some people, it will be also a burden. I know that there are people who actually want to be set step by step what they should be doing. So it's good to be very upfront of it and recruit the right people, the people who like this kind of a job, and not the people who will not, who will hate this kind of a job. Do you want to have? Do you have some maybe recent recruitment process, and you'd like to share how it was going and some interesting finding? Philip's showing that there is no interesting finding.
Oh, you have no interest. You have no. Yeah, I would not super recent, but I can share from Wikimedia Ukraine experience. We at least one or maybe even 2 or 3 times wanted to also invite people from other affiliates in the process, and I know that a few other affiliates do this. In our case, we did it because one of the candidates was a community member whom we know super well, and we struggled to find somebody independent who can assess him, whom would not have like a picture of the person in their head already. So we know that, for example, affiliates with lower experience also ask for advice for these cases for somebody who has a bit better track record, especially if you're coming from similar culture or language background.
We had a similar thing that sometimes taking the external expertise.
Yeah, we had a similar experience. We usually have a similar experience where whenever we advertise a position, a community member applies, and it's always a hard thing to assess because we don't want to alienate them, but we also don't want to select them if they're not the best for the job. And it's obviously hard to determine who's the best. That's really subjective. And you can't really do that with the limited time that you have when you're recruiting. But we try our best. So quite recently, we had a new job opening that was this month, basically. And we had a lot of people apply, not as many as previously. We had, I think, we had 500 something applicants at one time. That was like huge, and we had to go through every CV and everything. But now it's like more like 50 to 100. We have staff who could do the selection and the initial process, and then the first batch of interviews. But after that, we gave them tasks, we gave them assignments so that they could prove that that they know what they're doing. So we wanted them to create a budget for an event, a fictional event, but a realistic event, so something that's similar to what we've already done. And we gave them a task to write a letter to someone so that we can see their skills in that. And so then we selected 5 people, well, 5 women to be precise, coincidentally, that were, progressed to the last stage, and that included us as board members to also participate in the interviews. And so one of the persons that didn't make the final cut was a community member, a long-time, well-standing community member, but he just didn't really fit the needs of this position and the specificities. So we had no problem sort of cutting him loose because, we want the best. So the last batch of interviews went really well because the people were quite good, and then after talking to them in more depth, we finally sort of removed 3 people and 3 women, and only 2 were left. So then we were sort of conflicted between the 2, but we sort of wanted to give pros and cons and try to summarize everything in. And this rarely happens, but this time we very quickly reached the consensus. We're hiring this person, and she was very thrilled to be hired, and she's starting the day after tomorrow, or on October the 1st, wherever that comes. Okay. So yeah, it was a relatively quick process, but a very successful one. Well, we'll see, of course, because she needs to prove herself, right? But I think that when it comes to recruitment processes, this was as smooth as can be for us.
Cool. Thanks for reminding. So in day job, I don't do the work like a work at home tasks, but we started doing it in Wikimedia Poland, especially with the ED recruitment, like two years ago, and I think it was very helpful. Of course, we are trying not to overburden this person, but kept it very relevant. And unfortunately, we didn't have for years, let's say, cannibalization issue. I mean, converting volunteer into the permanent staff. We used to do it many years ago. Sometimes in the situation when we had 2 long-standing candidates from the community, we turned out with hiring the both. Wojciech remembers when Natalia became the staffer of Wikimedia Poland, basically. Yes, but yes, because there were 2 very good hires, and we actually could stomach to do some partial FTEs or something, do some movements and do it.
Later it evolved
to full-time, yes.
No, and later it also... But there is also something to be said about the future evolving of those people, because as you do remember, Michał, Krzysztof became the full-blown PR person, while Natalia went into the volunteer support capacity. So there are ways that things can go that you cannot probably foresee when recruiting, and that was also beautiful here.
Yes, so sometimes if you can afford and there is opportunity, it's good to jump on this. So if we recruited this
just
person,
one issue about recruitment processes within the community. Sometimes what happens is when you recruit a person from the community, so the cost is that this person stop being a Wikipedian because he or she is so preoccupied by the job that's the cost. She or he does not contribute to Wikipedia anymore. So yeah, we had this issue, and one staff member, when was leaving, said that was one of the issues, that she couldn't edit and the editing was not fun when she was working for Wikimedia Poland.
Thank you for raising that. I think that both Wikimedia Polska and the Hub have seen people from outside the movement who were recruited and who performed their job well, or at least who started to perform their jobs really well. I'm communicating visually with Michał on that. But let's please remember that working for an affiliate requires other skills, either working for an affiliate or being in a governance position in an affiliate, being on a board, being on some kind of body, requires other skills in editing. You need to start thinking finances, you need to start thinking protection from legal threats, right? You need to start thinking sustainability rather than think references neutral point of view and no copyright violations.
Yeah, it's a different job, and some people do handle it for years, and some other do not. So yeah, this is this risk of a cannibalization, basically, that we are facing. Okay, so we recruited the person, we are onboarding them, like pulling them into this organization, to the working part of it. And this is actually yet another thing that actually starts many, many months in advance. So there is a work environment that we are pulling it, but this work environment needs to be organized, and it should have been organized much earlier, right? So the position clarity needs to be prepared so the people are not surprised that this person is coming and everyone knows what's going on there. So onboarding is the whole process, and it would take people, and I encourage having the timeline. This is the best practice with checkups basically after some days, and after some days, did this thing happen, did this thing happen, including the minus days, like day -5, day -15. If I don't know, equipment is ready, things are ready, everything is ready, so the person can arrive. With a process owner given, mostly the manager of this person who is arriving, but you need to sort out. If you are a group of volunteers, you will need to designate a person who will be taking care that this person is welcomed and they have tools, everything to be doing the work that you are paying for. Because otherwise you recruited the person you are paying for and you will not be receiving anything. Maybe even negative value because the people will get sour because there is a lot of tension. Also that we volunteers are not that good yet is providing training and development to the person. I don't know, maybe staffers can share something or the volunteers can share something. Oh.
Thanks. I can share from the staffer's perspective. I've been onboarded by another staff member, by a staff member who was very educated on the whole Wikimedia projects as a whole, and I can say that the onboarding process was very well structured, it was well done, and I can, by the way that you're presenting all the points, I can tell that my colleagues have been very well prepared, that they had a very professional recruitment process as a whole. The onboarding process for me was, I would have to say, overwhelming, because Wikimedia is such a vast universe, and I probably forgot half the onboarding information that they gave me, but nonetheless they gave it to me, so I have it somewhere in my unconscious maybe, and I can say that when I'm talking to someone on like conventions like this, then I can say, oh yeah, I heard this somewhere. I can't really put my finger on it, but I heard it. But I think the onboarding process, compared to former occupations that I had, this was, it always was a lack. I know that onboarding is often falling to the side. It's always sidelined in a way, and this was not the case when I was onboarded in Wikimedia Austria, and this really, really helped me. So I just want to make it clear that the onboarding process is the way to, it can be a make or break deal for many people. So even though the priorities are always low on this, it's actually for the new staffer, it's a very high priority.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have a guest who was this onboarding manager colleague over there. So excellent choice to start a Wikimedia career. I think that's as a movement many years ago, finally, we started to develop the tolerance and understanding that we are that diverse, that not everyone understands everything, and we have much more tolerance for, I don't know, educating the other people. As among ourselves volunteers, I'm a volunteer myself here, because we are doing very different things, like this.
Maybe a second thing. I think one of the most essential parts was that he had fun while teaching me all the new things, because you could tell, because he's a Wikipedian himself, he's an admin, and so he had a fire to teach me all these things he wanted me to know. And this showed in the way that he onboarded me. He was not only knowledgeable, but he was also enthusiastic about it. And I think that really made like the extra step. Yeah.
Cool. So maybe we should, I don't know, do some orientation camp with this designated person, because, you know, the reality is that not every Wikimedia organization is that fortunate to have the resources to do this. From the, I don't know, for instance, from the hiring person perspective, onboarding is yet another tedious task. I mean, it's very cool. The new person comes, we are happy, welcome, right, new future. But it's yet another task. This is yet another task. And the same, even more, will be about things like providing feedback or providing guidance. If you're overwhelmed with your job, with your regular task, and managers very often are, especially mid-level managers and above, it's very easy to, you know, ditch, okay, we will skip the one-to-one or something because we can do it later, and you can be postponing. So I think that this is for me food for thought, maybe for us to thinking how we can facilitate this thing as the onboarding. For instance, I'm still lacking that we don't have the proper training materials, even reading training materials for the Wikimedia staffers in general, or I don't know, video trainings, things like that. Maybe we should ask the foundation to prepare something on this. And the fast workplace, I know it's mundane, it's very mundane, but this is a lot of things that we need to prepare to go out from a very startup situation to something decent. And this is something that the small organizations, especially the new ones with the first, second staffer, they are very often struggling with, right? That you need to have some equipment, you need to have some policies, you need to have documents, how you do things here and there, that you need to have, I don't know, HR system and all the systems that the people are even submitting that they are at work or not at work, right? You need to set up a lot of things. And of course, you can start slow and develop slowly, but still this is a, let's say, long-term plan. And I encourage everyone who's thinking about hiring people or having more people, that this is like a continuous process. So when we're talking about the life cycle of a staffer, there is an even larger life cycle of a workplace that you are working to develop. At least fast forward, you are not alone there, and you're not alone even within the Wikimedia system, but actually in your country, with your regulation, there is a lot of help that you can get. You're not the first organization that doesn't have capacity to do the other things, so there is a lot of accountants doing also very often basic HR things. There are lawyers, there are safety people, there are trainings that you can tap to. Just get it funded, get it budgeted, and get it done. For technology, I don't know, everyone has, we had a lovely chat, right? That colleagues have the pretty good, in Austria, open source stack. We're still, unfortunately, in Poland on the closed platforms. With some Asana, Slack, CVHR, that was a maybe open source thing over there. And as I said, with the red thing in the end. So rewards and recognition. So we volunteers, we tend to forget about it, but the people actually are making for their living in this thing. So compensation and other benefits are pretty important part of the work. So how much you should pay, all these things, I think the market benchmark is a fair thing. So doing basically the research, how much is paid in a similar NGO job. I personally think that you want to rather pay more and expect more, so rather you're on the right scale of things. But this is a very controversial thing in the movement. You need to be clear that people come from very different perspectives. Some members, some volunteers will be very much on the left part of the scale, that, you know, that why we haven't paid these people, because, you know, the people are doing this Wikipedia for free, and, you know, that the people should believe with the costs and everything. So this is an ongoing, it will be always ongoing debate. In your countries, on the markets, the things like welfare benefits and basically how this compensation looks will be different very, 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 very largely. In Poland, for instance, there is considerable expectations for some extra non-monetary benefits, like with some medical assistance and so on and so forth. These things, especially for the small organizations, can be difficult to provide because it's an extra admin burden for you, like assigning contracts with some providers and so on and so forth. But it can be very important for you guys. What's quite obvious, at least for me, and probably this is also the people that you would be thinking of in the Wikimedia and you're looking for, as the personal growth as a benefit. I think that in the Wikimedia movement, we are basically working on the knowledge, we are doing creative things, and if we can offer something, it's a personal growth of the people. We can dedicate some training, but we also can create, let's say, safe to fail, very innovative for an NGO space, so that people can be, once again, autonomous and develop themselves. And the red mark, regularity in recognition. As I said, it's very easy to forget that the people need to receive the feedback. I just received the question, how you're doing. And if I can help you and have a chat and be there for them and be there for them meaningfully, and Philip has the thing to this.
Yeah, just wanted to add a quick comment. So apart from personal growth, I would say professional growth as well, because from our experience, most of the people that we hired were at the beginning of their careers. And that sort of ties in with the benefits that you mentioned. So it's much easier to pay someone lower if the budget allows that. When they're at the beginning of their careers, right? When they're juniors, when they don't really have that much experience. So you offer them ways to build their careers while building their own, their salary, basically. And I completely agree with you. It's safe to fail. There are no corporate pressures, right, with KPIs, constant. Even though we cherish innovation, it doesn't necessarily have to be a part of the work all the time. And also, I wanted to mention another thing that escapes me now. It's very important for the staff to understand that we are not there to monitor them all the time. That's one of the huge benefits that staff within our, at least, organization have, especially when the ED is quite friendly. It's very rare not to have your bosses, being the board, right, above you all the time. And like I come from like commercial background, right? That's something that I cannot afford myself, but I think many people, NGOs, and especially Wikimedia organizations can have the luxury of. So it's something that I think many come to appreciate. We don't really recognize that in the recruitment process, but they come to realize that, you know, they have their freedoms. They don't have anyone, you know, constantly looming over them and telling them, you know, do this, do this. So they have their freedoms in more ways, in my opinion, at least.
Yes. Thanks, Philip, for fast forwarding to the 2 slides. Basically, yeah, so learning and performance. So yeah, in Wikimedia Poland, we don't, like the board is not looming over the people. And we have a little bit of different, the different approach. Currently, it's a very trust-oriented, with Grzegorz basically working directly with the people. For us, it's rather checks via documents. So things are documented more or less in Asana, in spreadsheets. We have, for instance, good control on the burn of money in particular positions. We have a strong managerial accounting, so you basically see how particular positions of particular staffers, how they are basically progressing in terms of expenditure and what's going on, if the process is stalled or if we are moving with this. So you basically see the flow. And then you can see if we are on track or not on track, and then when we are visibly not on track, then we can react, right? So we don't need to actively go to the people and ask them, okay, so how you're doing this week or this day or this month or whatever. Of course, there are still difficulties, like regularity of this thing is still very difficult to achieve, because there need to be all the parties involved, like the staffers need to have time, the board needs to have time, Grzegorz needs to have time, everyone needs to have time, for instance, for the good checkup and show and tell and the guiding session for the staff, which is difficult. And maybe a very difficult thing, because measuring performance, you can write books about the quantitative, qualitative, how you're doing, but measuring growth of the employee is a difficult task, always. Like finding the place that you see that, for instance, this person that you recruited as a junior person or regular person, actually they outgrew themselves. It's very easy to see the people in a constant way, right? Like I recruited this person and this is the person, but after a year or two, actually they developed themselves professionally, and finding these trigger points and realizing this, that yeah, that actually we should be active. They should not be shopping around for a better position, but we should be proactive with, for instance, promoting or making them, building them the pathway of the career promotion is very important. This is something that we were trying with visibly showing the people what is the progress. And it's quite difficult in a small organizations that you don't have, you know, the huge pyramid and everyone understands that after this you go here and there on these layers, but actually the people need to know that you will create the position for them, that you will see that they grew and you will change the organization for them. So this is, I think, a very, very important thing. I know that this is the 1 minute, so the last slide, retention and graduation. Of course, the retention is the question, what is your strategy and how much you want to keep the people, how strongly. And no matter what happens, because I think that it's okay that the people outgrow their position and they are looking for something better and more interesting, is the don't be a stranger attitude. So actually having a network of your alumni, the people who come from your organization, is very helpful. Even on this conference, we have our former staffers, the people who were employed by Wikimedia Poland in some part of their lives, and they are still in the movement here or there, and I think it's very helpful that we are having this connection. So you can build a lot with your access, and I strongly encourage you to do this. Thank you very much. It's 40 minutes, so I think we did it. Sorry that we didn't have more time to talk, but we can do it over coffee. Thanks. Let's go.